So, what can you do to get ready? Get vaccinated. Make sure you are ready to show proof of vaccination. Be patient and kind to event and establishment staff as they adjust to the new policy. Thank you for helping keep our communities safe and healthy.
Well, that public safety announcement brought to you by King County. It's time to show proof of vaccination or proof of a negative COVID test, folks, for most indoor and some larger outdoor events. That kicks in on October 25th. How is this going to play out in our region? What's the fallout from last week's vaccine mandate for public workers? We are tracking COVID news and so much more here on Seattle News, Views, and Brews, your coffee break political podcast. I'm Brian Callanan. I'm a host on Seattle Channel. The views expressed here are my own. And we're talking about a lot of different topics this week, and I'm going to break it down with none other than Kevin Schofield. There he is. And Kevin, I feel like you're really looking at a date on the calendar right now of November 23rd, when the full council votes on the 2022 budget package. I feel like we're about halfway through the budget marathon. Do you need some extra Gatorade, or how are you feeling right now?
Well, I made granola last night.
Oh, nice.
So like,
that's
yeah,
power,
just like
baby. I love it.
Gonna break it out at the end there, but it's like, yeah, get a extra boost of carbs for me to get through.
I love it. We will talk about that at the end of the show. Can't wait to hear about that. Thank you for doing that, Kevin. Thanks for baking up some granola. That's very cool. Thanks also to City Grind Espresso, our background noise sponsor for the audio podcast. They are open and ready to serve you at Seattle City Hall, so please support them, other small businesses too. Thanks to owners John and Riley for their support. Thanks also to our patrons. Just had Sonia join us over the past week. She actually sent in a question that we're going to work on answering later on in our show. Sonia, thanks for jumping on board. And she actually jumped in at the $10 level, so we will be sending her one of these Seattle News, Views, and Brews coffee mugs. And it's going to be awesome for her to get this. I know a lot of people have gotten them because they jumped in at that level here. And when they do, they send us some mug shots. We got a great one. This one from Karen. She sends in a beautiful mugshot of a steel gray sky at the top of Madison Tower. That is quite an office view. Karen, thank you for sending that in. Thank you so much for your support. Thanks to all of our patrons out there. Thanks also to Converge Media. Converge runs the video version of our podcast on their YouTube channel Wednesday nights at 7. All right, off we go with Right Here, Right Now. All right, well, Kevin, we are talking about the requirement to show proof of vaccination and or proof of a negative COVID test. That kicks in October 25th in King County. So restaurants and bars, the indoors ones for sure, and any outdoor events with a crowd of more than 500. I just wanted to talk about this. What do you expect to see happening on this Monday? Because there's a lot of different technological pieces here that are kind of in place, but maybe not. And I know you've raised some concerns about this.
Yeah, I think I don't think the word has gotten out really very well yet that this is going to get enforced starting on Monday, right? Where to get in a restaurant or bar or Climate Pledge arena or into a Seahawks game, you're going to need to be able to show a verification of vaccination for getting a whole bunch of different kinds of public spaces. And there are low-tech ways to do this, and there are higher-tech ways to do this. Lower tech, obviously, if you've got your vaccination card, and you're willing to carry it around with you, and as you and I have talked about, before we started recording this show, there's a special place in hell reserved for whoever designed a vaccination card that does not fit in a wallet. Right?
Didn't make it business card size. No, they did not.
But if you got your vaccination card, you're good.
Yeah.
If you take a photo of your vaccination card with your phone, then you can show that photo of it, and you're good. Right.
Yep.
So then the other thing you can do is you can go, particularly if you've lost your vaccination card.
Yes.
You can go up to this website that King County is using. It's myrmobile.com. There you can see the URL right there. And put in some identification information, and it will look you up in the state's immunization database, find your vaccination record, give you a certificate for it, give you a QR code. You can print out the QR code and scan that in any of the places that are asking for verification. In fact, that you can actually print out in a wallet size and stick in your wallet, and that's and that way you don't have to carry your vaccination card around with you all the time. That's really easy to do, or you can pull it up on your phone and show people a QR code from there. All those works. So it's a little more high tech. And I will tell you, last week some people have been trying to do this, and there have been some glitches. Here's a couple best practices. So the state has a different URL, and which seems to be running a different website. Don't go to the state ones. Go to myrmobile.com. That's the better website. Preferably go there from a laptop or a desktop computer rather than from your phone. People
Okay.
seem to be having better success going to there.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you went to, if you got your vaccine at, one of the City of Seattle sites, and you
Right.
lost your vaccination card, or you're having trouble getting MyRMobile to work,
Mm-hmm.
you can call the city's customer service bureau, and
Yep.
the folks there can actually look up your records and help you get it straightened out. And the phone number
Okay.
there to call
Mhm. Thank you.
is area code 206-684-2489.
Got
That's
it. Okay.
206-684-2489.
Okay.
And they will
Okay.
help you out. So there's some resources in place now
Yeah.
to get you through this.
This is going to be a really interesting time of transition here. And I think about a possible challenge here, the extra step that some businesses are going to have to take to make sure that people are vaccine verified here. Is it going to be a deal where they're checking IDs basically at the door? Or how do you see this playing out? Because I think a lot of businesses have been getting a lot of pushback already. I mean, people saying, I don't want to wear a mask or whatever else. This is kind of taking it a next step up. And I just wonder what the impact on businesses is going to be.
Well, that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to
Yeah.
check it at the door. And, and many businesses have said they're going to do it. Certainly the
Yeah.
big event spaces like Climate Pledge Arena and
Yeah.
the Seahawks have said they're going to be doing
Lumen
that.
Field. Yep.
Right.
Mhm.
Lumen Field.
Yep.
They're
Yep.
going to be doing that. I think certainly we can expect national chain restaurants and
Yeah,
bars
sure.
to be doing that. The local ones,
Absolutely.
it's gonna be more effort and more
Right.
staffing for them to do that.
Right.
It's one more hassle step.
I was gonna say,
the county is probably going to be enforcing this. Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
And I was going to say the smaller restaurants and bars, whatever else, when they have fewer than 12 people in terms of the size of the place, they're actually able to kind of ramp this up on December 6th. So they have a little bit more of a runway here. But the idea is the same for large or small. They just want to make sure people are getting taken care of here.
Yeah. We want to protect. I mean, they've got to protect their own staff. They've got to protect their customers. So it is in everybody's best interest to do this. And we're seeing. I mean, the good news is we're seeing the COVID infection rates go down in King County
A lot of headlines
dramatically. It looks like by as much as 50% in the last month or so, which is fantastic news. It's still too high. It still needs to go lower, right? And that's the effects of Delta. But the fact that with Delta out there, it is going down. The high vaccination rate is really, really helping a lot,
right?
And the efforts to enforce in the mandates have been helping a lot too. So there's goodness coming out of this, and people are getting protected.
I sure hope we continue to see that trend follow out. But I wanted to talk about something that we discussed last week, these vaccine mandates that went into effect October 18th at the county and city levels too. I think you really called it on this one last week when you talked about this. A lot of people getting really worried about the numbers of different officers or firefighters that might be unvaccinated. When you saw that number of 93% of firefighters are vaccinated, 92% of Seattle police officers are vaccinated and turned in that proof, what did that say to you when you saw those numbers?
We're deadline driven, right?
Yeah, right. That's a big piece of it. Yeah.
I mean, speaking as journalists, you and I can say, journalists are certainly deadline driven.
Yeah, you got that right. Yeah.
My daughter's in academics are students are deadline. Everybody's deadline driven. It's the American way, right?
Yeah.
So I will say, one caveat with the numbers, there's a lot of people who asked for exemptions. Right. Religious exemptions, some medical exemptions, and what happens with that is the employer, the government employer, has to look at that and say, given their job, is this something that we can accommodate in a way so that they are not exposing a lot of people to. Can they work from home? Are there,
some of these state workers have been put in a place where they're not as public facing, et cetera. Yeah.
Right. So where they're not as public facing, and that pulls in a couple different things. If it's a medical exemption that would follow normally under something like the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, then there are very strong legal requirements for them to provide that kind of accommodation. For a religious exemption, it's a little looser. And in fact, this is probably something in the next couple of months we're going to see come up in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, interpreting the rules about religious exemptions for something like vaccine mandates. The law isn't entirely clear as to how that should be interpreted. No. And so there's more room for the government to say, that is just not something we can accommodate. So either you have to take a different job or you have to leave your job. right?
Man.
But
Okay.
we'll see. So again, is it a medical one where it's ADA, or is it a religious one where there's a different standard that's unclear yet? We're just going to have to see how that all plays out. But there were a lot of exemptions requested, so we don't know the final number yet as to how many
some fallout over the next
employees
couple
are going to be
weeks.
let go. Right?
Yep, for sure.
Certainly, we're going to see some more, but we don't know how many more.
Got it. I wanted to make sure I touched on one more piece here before we went to our next segment, Kevin, and that's with regard to what's happening with the budget right now. We're talking about a lot of different things for the Seattle City Council. They're looking at some issue identification. They're getting through that. Tell us about the schedule ahead here briefly. I just want to make sure we touched on that.
Right. So last week was sort of a quiet week for the council. They were all heads down writing budget amendments. Things to change in the mayor's proposed budget. This week, on Monday, we'll probably see that whole list of budget amendments rolled out, and there's going to be a lot of redundancy. They're then going to spend Tuesday through Thursday talking through that entire list, and that'll be their first real discussion in very quantitative terms about like, here are the changes we'd like to make.
Right.
And they're not going to vote on those amendments for probably about another month.
Right.
But what they will do this week is they'll kind of do informal straw polls to see how many other city council members, generally support it. And that's going to be important data for Councilmember Mosqueda, the budget chair, because after this week, she's going to have to put together her chair's balancing package. That's really sort of the consensus you have. Here's all the uncontroversial things that the city council as a whole supports, right? So she's looking for data this week to see where is a consensus support, where is not consensus support.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of things fall out this week. So thanks for the preview there. All right, up next, a decision by King County to take over security at City Hall Park in downtown Seattle. That's ahead on Now Hear This. All right, City Hall Park, just south of the King County Courthouse downtown. It's been the site of homeless encampments. It's been a place where there's been some violence over the past year, many times. Right now, it's fenced off and closed. If you've been downtown, you've seen it. Well, here's what's going on. The King County Council has approved a measure asking Executive Dow Constantine to put together a report on the possibilities of having county acquire the park so it can handle security there instead of Seattle PD. Councilmember Jeannie Cole-Wells is one of the prime sponsors of this move. Here's why she's pushing for this.
I believe strongly that the downtown King County Civic Campus is a space that is meant to be safe and accessible for everyone, all 2.3 million county residents and others, and facilitate, not impede, the public from safely accessing justice at the courthouse.
Kevin, just a very interesting topic we're talking about here. Jeannie Cole-Wells trying to frame this as a move to keep local government accessible to the public. But I just wanted your take on this. How do you look at this move from the county, and what kind of statement is it to the city of Seattle?
So City Hall Park is about sort of half a block away from City Hall, but it is wedged right in between the county courthouse and the King County Administration Building. So it's sort of in the middle of the county, what they call the county campus there.
Yes,
I think it's certainly notable that this particular bill in the King County Council brought together some strange bedfellows. Brought together Councilmember Cole-Wells and Councilmember Reagan Dunn.
Yeah, they don't agree on a lot. That's true.
These two don't agree on anything, right? And they both back this, and that's a real statement. I mean, it's really an indictment of the city of Seattle and their approach to managing homelessness, where the public safety and public health issues, particularly public safety issues, where King County employees, not to mention King County residents who are trying to get access to services in these buildings, said, we don't feel safe.
Right. I know
going
the judges,
into
the courts were saying we can't do the business
judges,
we need to do.
The staff, the King County employees were saying we don't feel safe. And that park is basically also right adjacent to one of the entrances to the Pioneer Square light rail station as well.
That's right.
So there's an access issue for that as well. So as you mentioned, what the King County Council passed was a resolution asking the King County executive to put together a report on options. Now, it's going to be a little complicated because the city of Seattle owns that park, and under city of Seattle rules, they can't just sell or give away a park. Right. The law says in the city of Seattle that if they're going to get rid of park property, they have to get an equivalent amount and type of park property back. Right.
That's right.
And King County largely doesn't own park property within the city of Seattle.
Right. So how's that going to work?
So
well, I guess the city of Seattle is going to have to play ball on this one, and I just wonder that's going to.
Now King County does own other property in the city of Seattle, particularly down towards Boeing Field, which may be really interesting opportunities for a new park in an area of the city where that doesn't have as many. And Georgetown, sort of, South Beacon Hill, those kinds of areas. Are very much, opportunities for new parks. So maybe there's an opportunity to kind of do a deal there. But it is really an indictment of the city of Seattle and its management of that park and its management of the homelessness and the public safety issues as a whole that King County has said, like, this is untenable. We actually need to jump in and do something about this.
Yeah, I think about this, though, and what sort of precedent is set with this, because the county coming in and trying to work on this park or whatever else, absolutely. That sounds like they need to do some work there and they'd like to make this a lot safer. But I know that there are a number of different places that have encampments all around the city of Seattle. It's like, wait a minute, I get that you're doing the work there in downtown Seattle at City Hall Park, but what about these other places? I just wonder how that plays out, because there were two members of the King County Council who were not happy about this. McDermott and Zahalai voted against this. They were saying this is a really dehumanizing way to approach homelessness. And I wondered what you thought about that. The precedent set here, what it means.
Yeah, it comes back to all the issues around so-called sweeps of parks.
Yes, right.
And the larger issues of, with a very large homeless population right now and the dearth of shelter space and affordable housing. What is the right approach? And a few years back, Councilmember O'Brien, City Council member O'Brien, tried to sort of put forth this notion of essentially, look, we basically need to account for the public spaces that we have, to have an open conversation about where do we think it's okay, given the constraints we're all living within, for there to be homeless encampments, and where it's not okay. And after we sort of cross out the areas that we think it's not okay, is there enough space left for the thousands of homeless people in this city? Right.
At least 4,000.
If not, we need a different plan. Right. And that never happened. That is an awkward conversation in the city. So we're so kind of polarized, or people say like, we need to move people out of parks. And there's a bunch of folks who are saying, you're just moving the problem around the city and destabilizing people whose lives are already, destabilized. And there's, and neither of those is a tenable solution.
Right.
No. Right. And so, City Hall Park is a microcosm of that larger question, right?
I think that very much
there are people living in parks. We can try to push them somewhere else, or we can, we can leave them in place. And neither one of those is tenable.
And we're going to see what that report is like from Executive Constantine. It is due January 15th of next year. All right, Kevin, I wanted to make sure we moved on to another topic here. Go into the mailbag here. Our patrons have sent in a few of these. Sonia actually wrote one in, our newest patron out there. Thank you, Sonia, for doing this. She writes this: I'm interested in learning more about how Seattle's policies on the climate crisis are evolving. Now, Sonia's on the City Climate Action Committee for the League of Women Voters. She wants to educate voters leading up to the fall election. Sonia, thank you very much again for the question. A lot to unpack here, but I think, Kevin, if we can look at the Seattle City budget as a way to focus an answer here, that might be a good way. We've got the Office of Sustainability and Environment right now in the budget process, asking for some budget adds to programs in the Duwamish Valley, trying to green up some industrial lands there. They're also looking for some adds to the Green New Deal. Can you try to go big picture for Sonia here and answer some of this question here about where the city's going on the climate crisis?
Yeah, it's a great question. And a couple of years back, the city council passed a Green New Deal resolution that said, here are our goals. It was, it was pretty comprehensive. It was, you could take a look at it and say, wow, this, Green New Deal is sort of like the entire progressive agenda, political agenda.
Aspirational for sure.
There's labor stuff in there. There's also stuff, and those issues are all interrelated. And that certainly speaks out of the fact that all these issues, there are environmental justice issues, that relate to, the fact that the impacts of climate change are not equivalent for everybody, right? That they have hit poorer communities and communities of color harder than they have, richer, whiter communities. So those kinds of environmental justice issues come up as well as part of this. So in the budget,
Valley makes sense. Keep going. Yeah.
Right. So in the budget, there's about $14 million in the mayor's proposed budget for Green New Deal kind of investments.
Right.
They've reserved about $6.5 million of that because the Green New Deal Advisory Oversight Board has just finished getting sort of all its appointments to it, and they haven't come back with recommendations yet. So they've reserved about $6.5 million
to do that. Okay.
To do that. So they've set aside $6.5 million to go fund whatever they come back with their investments.
Got it.
And then there's things that the city council has been doing over the last year, like tightening up energy codes for new residential commercial buildings.
To use electricity instead of natural gas. Yeah, keep going.
Well, we'll come to that. That's sort of a whole separate thread. Subsidizing, conversion from oil heat to heat pumps, particularly low-income communities and older housing, where you tend, what we tend to call naturally affordable housing, where you tend to find those older kind of heating systems. Now, separate from that, the mayor has done some executive orders to try to push forward some of the Green New Deal efforts as well. So, she has ordered that all new city buildings will be gas free, right? No gas hookups to them. She has ordered that the city move to an all electric fleet of vehicles. They have a fleet that they share among different city departments. They want it all to be electric. They've been pushing for the Port of Seattle and the cruise ship terminals to require boats that are docked to use shore power, so that they're not running their diesel engines the entire time that they're sitting in port. And that requires some more infrastructure, but kind of they're working on. So those are some of the things that they've been working on. Obviously, they want to continue to push, electrifying other kinds of transit, more electric buses from Metro, pushing light rail. That's one of the issues as they come up this fall and have another conversation about, are they going to restart the, Center City Connector streetcar effort, right? That would be electrified transit if it moves forward. It's expensive. So they're looking at a wide variety of issues around that.
And there was one issue that we talked about over email here that I wanted to make sure I brought up with Sonia here, because there's a challenge with the climate crisis when it comes to protecting our tree canopy in the city of Seattle, which sounds like a great thing, right? But I think a lot of people are concerned that could turn into a tool where some people are saying, I don't want development in my neighborhood. Let's protect the tree canopy. That's going to be a very interesting debate in the years to come as well.
Right. There is a local activist group that has been pushing very hard for greater protections of the tree canopy in the city. And the tree canopy in the city, a large part of it is in our city parks, and that's fairly well protected.
Right.
And then there's another large portion of it which is in what we would call our single family residential zones, right? Single family homes and trees around them. And the protections around those are less strong. And this activist community is pushing harder for protections of those. There have been some accusations that effort is a stealth, sort of a stealth NIMBY effort to protect single family zoning.
Not in my backyard.
From upzoning, from larger, multi-family, multi-unit buildings that would take up more of the footprint of those lots and cause the the reduction of trees. And and the folks in those efforts deny that. But this is Seattle, so of course we're going to have those kinds of political arguments.
That's right.
And that touchy area makes it incredibly hazardous for the politicians in City Hall to weigh in on this, right? They either do they take the environmental side? Do they if they take the environmental side, are they supporting NIMBYs? It's really tough and dangerous territory. And so this is something that's improving through the tree canopy legislation has been something that's been tried several times over the last 5 years, and it's gone nowhere time after time after time because it always hits this sort of intersection of NIMBYism and environmental protection.
It is fascinating stuff. And Sonia, I really appreciate the question. Kevin helped me out with some extra details here. I'm going to send you a follow-up message with those details in just a little bit. But we need to start wrapping up our show. It's time to fill out your public safety survey. But wait, you didn't know Seattle had one? Actually does. We're going to break it down, tell you how to get involved, coming up with What's Next. All right, Kevin, it's that time of year for the annual Seattle University Crime and Justice Public Safety Survey, funded by the Seattle Police Department. Seattle U's been doing this for several years. The authors of the study wrote about it in Crosscut. I thought it was a great piece here, and said this: public perception of safety and crime might not always match up with the actual police data in the neighborhood about what crimes are happening, right? But I thought this was interesting. That perception is a critical part of this, because maybe those people who are afraid of crime didn't connect with their neighbors for a neighborhood watch, or maybe they don't trust the police, for example, something like that. I think that can contribute to a further erosion of public safety, more disconnectedness too. I just wanted your thoughts about this survey.
Yeah, all the research for, decades looking at public safety, touch it on several different parts of this, right?
Yeah.
They touch on the fact that in certain neighborhoods, there's a disconnection, and not just in Seattle, right?
Yeah, sure.
In all cities, in all, urban and suburban environments, there can be a disconnect between the actual amount of crime going on and the perception of the amount of crime that's going on.
Yeah.
And it may in part be a difference in how much crime is reported, right?
Okay.
And whether people, which is in turn sort of tied up in the question of, do people feel like it's worth bothering to report it because,
Who's
what if
show up? Right.
What if a police officer never shows up or doesn't show up for a couple of days to take a report, and there's never any follow up, and is it worth it at all? In which case, crime often goes underreported in these areas, or unsolved, right? If there are no results that comes out of that,
right?
But then there's also all these issues about that even in places where there's not a lot of policing, crime can be really low if the neighbors are highly activated and engaged and organized around sort of policing it themselves. Right?
Yes, right.
And a lot of that, turns into questions about, does the architecture in the community actually support
does that contribute to it? Sure.
Is it a neighborhood where people are active on the streets, right?
Sure.
Where there's storefronts at street level, or people, play areas where the entrances and exits from buildings actually feed out into the street, or feed out into some back corridor, or courtyard or something like that, right? So the architecture makes a big difference for a lot of these things.
Yeah, the built environment's big.
Yeah, and so whether there are people actively on the street looking out, whether people are willing to intervene when they see crime going on in the neighborhood, are big issues. Yeah. The public safety survey asks a bunch of questions around these issues, right? Yeah. And the nice thing about the survey is they've been really disciplined about asking the same questions year after year. Yeah. So it's not just sort of a point in time of sampling what's going on, but you can really see the trends over years. And they ask a lot of questions about what neighborhood you're in, so they can sort of do it by neighborhood. This feeds a lot of the micro policing, plans that SPD puts together with communities every year. To just acknowledge the fact that public safety and public safety issues are not uniform across the city.
No,
right?
No.
They really do differ in different parts of the city, and so we need more customized plans.
Indeed, and you can get in your responses, folks, at publicsafetysurvey.org. publicsafetysurvey.org. Get those responses in by November 30th. Kevin, it's time to wrap up the show. We always like to have a nice treat when we do that. And you brought some granola. Tell me what's going on. It's that time of year for you. Are you going to chug that whole thing right now? What's going on?
Right now, all of it. As soon as the show's over, it is going to be empty.
What's your secret behind that?
I made this last night. It's granola is super easy, and we've talked about this on the show before.
Yes.
It is super easy to make. Like it took me 5 minutes to put sort of to mix it all together, and then it takes about 40 minutes to bake, and twice during the 40 minutes I had to go stir it up a little bit. But the best part about making your granola is you get the stuff that you want in there. Like I hate flax seeds. Because it gets stuck in your teeth, and it's just like they're healthy, and quite frankly you can't digest them anyway. So I don't use flax seeds. I use flaxseed meal in that. right? So I
I
get all
see.
the
Okay.
benefit of flax seeds
I was
and
going to hope.
nothing
Yeah.
stuck in my teeth.
Yeah, because our
right?
flaxseed sponsorship really is going to bank on that. So keep that up.
Yeah,
would
yeah,
you?
yeah. That's really important. So, like, you know, the kinds of nuts that you like, and not the nuts that you don't
Or you
like.
don't, right?
You
Right.
know, and you can make it, you know, as healthy or as unhealthy as you want. So, like,
Yes.
the best part of making your own granola, you know, and it is really, really easy, is you get all the stuff you like and
That's
none of the
right.
stuff that you don't like.
And Kevin's going to be going through handfuls of it as the budget process continues. Thank you for that breakdown, sir, as always. That's going to be fun to chew there. I can't imagine. All right. Thanks again, Kevin, for that. Thanks to our patrons. Thanks to everybody listening. It's Seattle News, Views, and Brews, where you can always find out what's brewing in local politics. Please subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you might listen. Again, please do become a patron on Patreon to support our show. Always appreciate it. Thanks also for watching on Converge Media 2, and we will see you next time. Seattle News, Views, and Brews is an independent production of Callanan Media Services. Copyright 2021.